Well, good evening. This is Hound Dog Steve coming to you on the 1st of May. It is Mayday and all the Mayday dances are going off, and the weather has turned suddenly warm. Absolutely fantastic. I can't wait to get into the garden. And I printed this off tonight. This is a new thing that I'm doing. This is my barber shop, and I will be accepting Bitcoin from here on in. So I'll be putting that notice up on the wall so people know that you can purchase a haircut with Bitcoin. Okay, so first story. Liberals introduce election reform bill. Okay, so this is probably the most disingenuous piece of work that I can imagine, and it's kind of interesting. You see this chap here walking past the post because Justin Trudeau promised, as a platform promise, that we would have electoral reform in this country, and the election in which he got elected, he promised that it would be the last first past the post kind of election, and that we were going to move on to some kind of proportional representation. And here we have an election reform bill which is really talking about the amount of money that can be spent on ads pre-election, and concerns that electronic ads through Facebook and so on and so forth may be intercepted or hacked. You see, the new legislation aims to address international concerns that foreign or unknown interests are able to influence elections by surreptitiously funding ads or fake news online through advertising on Facebook or other social media platforms. So this is really disappointing. We really do need proportional representation in this country. The Liberals promised to give us this, and they were so disingenuous that when there was an all-party committee that was struck to investigate the electoral reforms, the committee came back and said, well, we really need a referendum on this, a nationwide referendum on how to proceed and what method of voting we want to have in this country. And so Justin Trudeau came back and said, well, yeah, we'll do that if we have the option for the status quo. What, are you kidding me? Option for the status quo? That means that if you don't like the result, you get to pick whatever choice. Why have a referendum? I mean, that's I don't know whether we can even use this phrase anymore, but there was a term in Canada called to be an Indian giver, and that is to mock the government's ability to give and yet take back at the same time. Okay, and that's what this is. We were promised electoral reform, that we were going to have a true democracy in Canada. And this leads us into our next story, G7 nations tackling social media. And of course, what they're trying to do is to stop foreign forces from advertising on social media platforms and trying to influence the elections. And really the only way that the G7 could have any kind of meaningful sentiment in this action is if they stopped doing the same damn thing themselves. We have the Five Eyes, which is America, Canada, England, Australia and New Zealand, and they have all agreed to share the data that they collect while spying on other countries, other nations and other leaders. And so the whole world is wrapped up in this spy versus spy nonsense about interfering with each other's elections. But the bigger issue is the fact that Facebook and YouTube are selectively blocking videos that don't have a radical left slant. So if you are even mildly right of centre, you are going to run into prohibition problems. You are going to have your videos demonetized and basically sidelined. This recently came up at the congressional hearing where Diamonds and Silk were testifying, and because they are two black women who supported Trump, their site was essentially disabled by Facebook. and so a lot of their shares were not being shared. The likes were basically cut off. I mean, this is the most dangerous thing about these platforms, because they have such a monopoly, and everyone is using these platforms, and so to decide who you're going to favor in the race, that's worse than foreign hacking, okay, because you have complete control over the algorithm, over what you are going to edit out of your site, and what people are going to see and what they're not going to see. So no shame on you, Google and YouTube and Facebook, for basically trying to influence people into a radical left stance, instead of hearing the entire argument based on hearing both sides of the facts, both sides of the argument. That's what we're looking at here, and that's what these social platforms should be mandated, absolutely mandated, to adhere to. Okay, your First Amendment rights are huge. Freedom of speech. Freedom of speech is huge, and I'll tell you why. Because freedom of speech is how we negotiate all our other freedoms. And if you're going to restrict the freedom of speech, then we cannot adequately negotiate all the other freedoms and rights that we are entitled to. Okay, next story. Here is a real loser. Democratic Party sues Trump, Russia, and WikiLeaks. You can see that this is just not going to fly at all, and in fact it may dangerously boomerang back on the Democratic Party, because so far all of the investigation into Trump has turned up all kinds of wrongdoings by the Clinton Foundation and Clinton while she was Secretary of State for the United States of America. And so the more they try and sling mud at Donald Trump, I actually think he should be renamed the Teflon President, because nothing seems to stick to him. I cannot believe that the way the press and the media have treated Trump, and it has just gone right past him. He is definitely on a mission, and it'll be interesting to see where that mission leads us. But this lawsuit is probably going to bankrupt the Democratic Party. They're already pretty well broke, because it's come out now that Clinton basically bailed out the DNC because they were just about bankrupt. And so who's going to bail them out now? Where are they going to find the money to pursue this? And what are you going to do if you get Russia in court? Oh no, we didn't do it. Oh yes, we bought a couple of ads, but we... Yeah, okay, I got the memo, okay. This is not going to fly. Okay, so here is a story about Hydro One's executive severance package, and Wynne has recently been questioned on this, because, what do you know, this board of directors changed their severance package last year. They didn't announce it, they kept the whole thing a secret, and basically these packages are, it's going to be virtually impossible to get rid of any of these senior executives without a huge cost attached to it. I think we are now at $10 million for Mayo Schmidt, who is the CEO of Hydro One. And, you know, Mayo Schmidt basically is getting now $6.5 million a year as a CEO. And as you'll see over here, the average prices of payment for CEOs across Canada is nowhere near that. Okay, so this is the CBC website, and this is OPG, which is Ontario Power Generation, but it does give the wages, the CFO, as his compensation in New York, Quebec and BC. CFO Don Hanbridge has a salary of $396,000 and received total compensation of $741,000 back in Canada. Thierry Vandal, who holds a variety of positions at Hydro-Quebec, including CEO and president, makes an estimated $558,000 in total compensation. BC Hydro has 2,667 employees, and Charles Reid, the BC Hydro president, was paid $531,000 last year. So 6.5 million is just outrageous. I'm sorry, it's outrageous. I don't know how he justifies this money, but we have just raised minimum wage in Ontario to $15 an hour, or sorry, $14 an hour right now, and it's going to $15 an hour next year. And I did a little calculation for Mayo Schmidt. Now I've given him some allowances there because I'm assuming that he's doing a 50-hour week, 52 weeks a year, with no vacations and no days off. And his hourly rate is $2,620 per hour. So compare that to the poor schmuck who's making 14 bucks an hour. Now, when I'm a blue collar kind of guy, you can see I'm wearing my blue collar. I'm a working class person. I've been a working stiff all of my life. I've been working since I was 16. I started my apprenticeship on BP tankers. And when I see somebody making that kind of hourly rate compared to the rate that minimum wage earners are making, I think it is just absolutely appalling, and there's nobody, I think, would agree that this man is worth that much. This is just out and out greed. Now, I don't think that if you divided this up amongst the population, it would amount to more than, a couple of cents each in our pocket. But that is not the point. The point is the outrageous wages that these CEOs are being paid to do what? Okay, so you sit in a boardroom and you decide a direction for the company to go. But essentially the company runs itself. You have all these underlings running around finding out stats on different departments, and so you make the final decision on who gets cut, who stays, what departments move around, what the hierarchy looks like. But at the end of the day, this is really just sitting behind a desk and making decisions with the information that's laid out before you. Maybe you think it's stressful and tedious and all this kind of stuff, but I'll tell you one thing. In the eyes of most working people, it is not worth $6.5 million per year, and all the other benefits that come along with that. Okay, and so yes, we are right to question the Wynne government on how she allowed this to happen. And of course, it did come out a few years ago with a woman called Eleanor Clitheroe, who was the CEO of Hydro, and it was revealed that she also sat on the board of TD Bank and Trust, and also a Stelco Steel, I believe, and there was a couple of other big corporations thrown in there. And of course, all of these board of directors all sit on each other's boards, so it's basically a silent agreement. It's unwritten, but they're all going to agree to their pay increases for each other, because that way they all get pay increases, big fat pay increases at the cost of the taxpayer. Well, if this isn't a let them eat cake moment, I don't know what is. And if this doesn't lose the Liberals this election for absolute arrogance to even think that this would be okay, and that this severance package could be worked out in secret, in private, and only just be revealed just before the election is about to come up, is absolutely disgraceful. Okay, well, that's about it. This is Hound Dog Steve wishing you a great evening and a great week. We've got a couple of days of rain coming up, but still it's going to be nice warm temperatures. So I hope you have a great week, and we will talk real soon. You take care now. See ya.